Well, that's why.
Yeah.
That was his point.
November versus August.
Oh,
I was telling what you said. And there's some line.
by the time I got back, I had to go to one of these.
But the bottom line is, you probably get blamed no matter what.
Yeah.
And hey, Larry, you were showing me
Have
that.
to have a hammer to set the
600,000.
lawyers down. Welcome, everybody, to the regular Board of Commission meeting for January, 7 o'clock. January 27th. Will everyone please rise for the invocation?
Heavenly Father, guide us as this board strives to preserve the beauty of our region and our community as we reach out to those in need, as we certainly did during the holiday season. We're thankful for everyone who helped others. Amen.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Stepka?
Here.
Richardson?
Here.
Max Bauer?
Here.
Inman?
Here.
Hooper?
Here.
Friend? Here. Fleece?
Present.
Chairman Thomas?
Here. Does anybody have any additions to the agenda or deletions?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I would like to change the agenda, Mr. Chairman. We have special order of business ahead of public comment,
Yeah, we're supposed to do that.
and I noticed that we have a large number of people here, and I thought perhaps it would be,
And we were going to change that before.
yes, we were.
Thank you. Anybody else got anything? Guys?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we would ask to remove item, as I find it, under my section, the MERS actuarial study request. We don't have sufficient information to be able to discuss that and give you all the details tonight, so we're asking that to be pulled. That's item number 2 under section C, and we'll bring that back to you at a later date.
Okay. Anybody else? We have a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I move the agenda be approved as amended.
Second. Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Public comment. Please read the rules.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. A, any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. B, no person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Having heard that, does anybody want to speak? I hope the clerk isn't the only one that speaks in public comment. Anyone? Come up and state your name and
Sit here.
thank you.
Oh, my name is Nicole Whitcup, and you want my address as well?
If you want to give
I don't know,
it.
that's what it said, 7007 Secor Road. And I'm just here as a citizen. My husband served on the American Legion Youth Baseball Board for the last several years. And there was a Parks and Recreation meeting last week that happened, and they brought up the question of what was going to happen with youth baseball this summer at the Civic Center. So I'm here, I guess, to address you tonight to ask that question because it was requested that maybe the county discuss taking over the baseball program because it sounds like right now there isn't one. So that's kind of, I'm here with that question to see what the intentions are. And I know that you had suggested that it be brought up at this meeting because of budget concerns, so.
Well, it wasn't necessarily at this meeting, but
Okay, well, that was my understanding, but I guess that's the question that I have then. Is there any plan for the county to consider creating through the Parks and Rec Committee a youth baseball program? Because we're talking about 900 youth in our area that could be without baseball this summer.
Anybody want to answer the question?
As far as I'm aware, the American Legion still is going to run that program. But it used to be through the county. The American Legion did it for insurance purposes years and years ago, and that was dissolved this year.
Right.
But as far as I know, the American Legion's still going to run that program.
Nicole, that's my understanding as well.
Okay, so that is going to happen. We weren't sure there was, I don't know how much you're aware, but there were many, many issues, and I just personally think as a citizen, if it continues with the American Legion as it did this last summer, there's going to be probably a lot of liability issues running it through the Legion, and that's something that I guess, once the citizens are aware that the American Legion's going to continue with it, that they'll probably want to step up and probably ask about how the problems that we had last year will be deferred this year because there were a lot of issues.
Well, I think that whoever your spokesperson is, first of all, should contact the American Legion, find out when their meeting is, and, go there and address the American Legion board and get the answer right from the horses.
Well, I understand that, and I do agree with that. However, that has been the ongoing issue, is that the board that has been since dissolved has addressed, like Mark Greiner as a member of, I know, the American Legion over there, and they've been told many things that haven't been followed through on. So at this point, I don't know. I'm just here as a citizen. I think that, I guess, there's some accountability as far as the county, because it's county property, that, we probably will need some answers as citizens as to what's going to happen.
Well, if I could, we've had a long history of working with the American Legion. They've used those fields forever.
Sure.
And so I think, at least the action that was taken so far, and this really falls under the purview, at least I think it does, of the Parks Board, although there are budgetary considerations. I would think that we're going to give the American Legion every opportunity to successfully run that program. Now, they're going to run it differently. They're going to be a vendor. They're going to lease fields from us the way everybody else does. But I guess all I could say is that if there is a lot of citizen dissatisfaction with the way that program is run, I would expect that the Parks Board would look at other options to operate it, wouldn't you, Commissioner?
Yes, I would.
So I think that's probably, they're going to get a chance to run it. If they don't do it, then I think from what I heard from the county board over the last 6 months of talking about this, number one concern is that those 900 children have a place to play baseball.
Exactly, without being harassed and everything else. They just need to be kids and be allowed to have that avenue, in the summertime.
And so I guess what I would say is if there's some dissatisfaction with it, the appropriate thing to do, and I know you've probably tried this, but try to work that through the American Legion through this season. And if there's dissatisfaction, public dissatisfaction with the way it's run, I'm sure the Parks Board would look at other options to operate the program.
Okay, and I guess that does answer a big part of my question, because, just going forward, if that's what happens, I'd like to know, where do we have, where is our outlet? So we would go through the Parks Commission, is what you're
Parks
saying.
Commission, I
Yep.
think, is the appropriate place.
Okay, well, that's all I have then. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Tom Mayer. I'm a resident of Traverse City, and I just wanted to bring up two things real quickly that I'm concerned about the environmental impact of. One would be biomass power produced by Traverse City Light and Power. I don't believe that that's really a green way to create power. It is an alternative way, but it's not a green way. And if you have any say at all, I realize that Traverse City Light and Power may not be in your associated with you, but if you can send them a message that the community is very uncertain about that, and the environmentalists are mostly against it. And the other thing that I'd just like to say again, I said it once before, I would like you to prohibit injection wells from Grand Traverse County if at all possible. And one of the side effects of doing that because I think there's a strong risk of environmental impact in that technique, is that you would increase the likelihood that the septic plant wouldn't have as much economic trouble as they may have about a year from now, with at least one source of income coming from Bay Harbor stopping. I know you can't do anything about injection wells in Emmett County, but if we could send a strong message to the entire state that injection well technology may be too risky. They defeated one in Alba, and I think we could defeat others in other places. It doesn't matter whether it's any type of toxic material. I think even cherry waste is risky to put underground. And there's a chance that we could see a well like that in our county someday. Up in Bay Harbor, it's mercury and arsenic and a lot of sediments left over from a concrete or a cement plant. So please, if you have any interest at all in this, try to keep the injection wells out of our county, try to keep them out of the state, and try to keep the waste coming from Bay Harbor to the septic plant, because that may be the best way to get rid of it, and it brings in money. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? That will close public comment and move to special orders of business. Presentation by Matt McCauley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Matt McCauley. I'm the Director for Regional Planning at the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments. I was before this board, I believe in September or October of last year, and I shared with this board the findings from the Grand Vision, the public participation phase of the Grand Vision, specific to the results of the citizens of Grand Traverse County. At that time, I also presented an award to Grand Traverse County on behalf of the Michigan Association of Counties for Grand Traverse County's leadership in the Grand Vision process. I also mentioned at that time that Grand Traverse County, as well as the other participating counties, Antrim, Benzie, Kalkaska, Leelanau, Wexford, would be recognized at the National Rural Transportation Conference in Savannah, Georgia, at the end of October. At that conference, this award was presented to each of those named counties for innovation and impact as it relates to rural transportation planning. Specifically, the Grand Vision was noted for connecting land use, economic development, and transportation. A little background on the award and the group presenting the award. The Rural Transportation Planning Organization of America is a subsidiary of the National Association of Development Organizations, which is an economic development group. But they saw the linkage between economic development and transportation, so they began working with transportation agencies on issues of shared interest. So this is the fourth year of the program, and it's actually underwritten by the Federal Highway Administration, which for those of you who know the history of the Grand Vision, much of the funds to pay for the Grand Vision were through Federal Highway Administration. I'm happy to answer any questions about the award or the progress of the Grand Vision to date. Commissioner Richardson serves on the Talus board, and I'm sure that he's keeping you up to date as to the progress, but we have most of the deliverables in hand and are currently reviewing those deliverables and are looking to have a final product ready in the next 2 months, I would say.
Cool.
Thanks, Matt.
Anybody got any comment?
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
We like to get things.
All right. I'll keep bringing it.
Thank you.
Fish photographer.
Next is the EDC. Didn't you bring me anything, Gene? Any plaques or?
Not this meeting.
Sorry.
Good evening, my name is Jean Dorenzi. I'm with the Grand Traverse County Economic Development Corporation.
I'm Kevin Byrne, I'm the chairman of the EDC.
And in December, this board approved a resolution establishing Grand Traverse County as a recovery zone, which allows Grand Traverse County to utilize the stimulus funding from the federal government with the allocation of $5.4 million for the economic bonds and $8.1 for the economic facility bonds, which is the private borrowing. As outlined in the December meeting, there's steps to be followed, and this is the second step on the criteria. And the county board, we're asking tonight to approve the criteria and the application. The criteria was developed by the Economic Development Corporation, the EDC board, and the County Planning Commission also developed the criteria as well. To highlight some of the criterias, the application for the facility bonds must have documentation of a firm commitment from a financial institution prior to us reviewing the application. We're also looking for how many jobs would be created, what the private investment will be, and if the company would be purchasing services from companies within Grand Traverse County. And as this is the stimulus money, we're looking for projects that can move forward within 90 days. So those are the criterias. And specifically with the economic bonds, the government bonds, those require the full faith and credit of Grand Traverse County. Within the criteria, we're saying that Grand Traverse County has the ability to allocate those to different governmental jurisdictions to utilize the federal stimulus. So you would not have to issue the bonds. You could allocate that to a township or a different governmental body. The Planning Commission and the EDC is recommending approval of the criteria in the application, and we're here to answer questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the recovery zone criteria as it's outlined in the packet.
Support.
Moved and supported, discussion?
Gene, are you getting any feedback about projects that may be shovel-ready that can possibly qualify for this? Have you heard of any locally?
Yes, for the private, we do have quite a bit of interest. We have a meeting tomorrow at 5:30 with all of the local developers, and we have about 10 that have indicated that they will be there and asking for applications.
Ross?
I would just like to point out that, speed is of the essence here because, Jean and her staff wants to have decisions made by June 30th, and the bonds have to be issued by December 31st, or they go away. So if it seems on a bit of a fast track, that's why.
Any other comment?
I guess the question for staff would be if we at Grand Traverse County have any projects that are near that possibly qualify.
There's the only ones that we could potentially qualify is the public money, the $5 million. And we have looked at it, at least on the surface, we see nothing that we're going to be ready for. Because you have to be bid ready and you have to be ready to design and build. There has been some interest expressed by the college. I don't know if that's going to be anything that has possibilities, but we've sent them the criteria so they could look at that. But I think the answer for us is no, we won't have anything.
Do new roads count?
Gene, we checked that.
The roads would be available, but for our jurisdiction, having the Davis-Bacon Act, the prevailing wage sometimes hinders the projects. And that prevailing wage is only for the governmental bodies.
Right. If we were a prevailing wage county where it was required of our work, it would be different. But since it's not, we've noticed, I think last time I looked, it was about an 11-12% difference between going rates and what prevailing wage under Davis-Bacon would require. And oftentimes that is offset, that amount of cost offsets the benefit of the program, the savings in the program.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come. Next time I will talk.
Next is the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such request will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file. 1. Senior Center Ad Hoc Committee Decision. Correspondence dated January 12, 2010. 2. 9/11 Policy. Correspondence of December 29, 2009, and email of January 19, 2010. 3. Support for County Road Millage. Email correspondence of January 21, 2010 from Matt Skeels. 4. Resolution objecting to election management system license renewal fees, Gogebic and Schoolcraft County. 5. Resolutions regarding funding obligations, state-mandated services, Gratiot, Oceana, and St. Louis counties. 6. Snowmobile Advisory Committee Resolution, Mackinac County. 7. NMSAS Resolution honoring Representative Gary McDowell. 8. Resolution nominating U.S. Route 31 as a heritage route, Van Buren County. Referrals, none. Action. 9. Board of Commissioners regular minutes of December 23, 2009. Recommend approval. 10. Board of Commissioners organizational minutes of January 4, 2010. Recommend approval. Public Safety Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. 11. Purchase of tasers for Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office. Human Services Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. 12. Fiscal year 2009-10 Child and Adolescent Health Center Grant, Youth Health and Wellness Center. 13. Fiscal year 2009-10 Child and Adolescent Health Center Grant, Kingsley Center. 14. Lease agreement, Kingsley Adolescent Health Center. 15. Grant acceptance, $3,000 from the Regional Community Foundation. 16. Grant acceptance, $12,500 from the Regional Community Foundation. 17. Acceptance of donation from the Friends of the Light Meeting Quaker Church. Legislation and Administration Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. 18. Approval of ballot language for August 2010 Commission on Aging. 19. Classification Plan Amendment, Facilities Management. 20. Building Access Control Policy and Procedures. 21. Appointments to boards and committees. Physical Resources Committee recommends approval of the following resolution. 22. Staffing Plan Amendment, Facilities Management. 23. Road Commission membership on Dams and Implementation Committee. 24. Countywide road millage. Ways and Means Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. 25. Purchase agreement, Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office property. 26. Twin Lakes access to recreation, Hallmark construction rate payment reduction. 27. Budget adjustment. And 28. Resolution in support of the final report of the Legislative Commission on statutory mandates, December 2009.
Heard the consent calendar. Is there anybody in the public want anything withdrawn? If not, Ross?
Number 9.
Number 1. Number 18. And I guess I'll ask the board, do we need to remove number 24 to see the language or to discuss the language because we didn't have the language last time, or is it okay?
I like the language.
It's okay?
I'd like to ask a question.
No?
Actually, I'd just like to go ahead and remove it because we did get quite a number of letters, and so.
Okay.
Okay. Did we pull that one?
Yeah. Yep, 24.
Okay.
Also, I'd like to amend the receive and file to include the 7 letters and emails that were received from Bill Plow, Kevin Andres, Renee Kaufman, Tracy Bartlett, Lonnie Schaub, Fred Joels, and Tom Menzel.
Oh. Those are these here that I
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to read yet. And you want to put them where?
Just amend and include them with the receive and file
Okay.
under number 3, and change that from support for county road millage to county road millage correspondence.
Okay,
Some are for and some are not. so.
all right. Sonny?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask to remove item number 26, please.
26? Larry?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item number 1, adding number 9 to receive and file by Commissioner Friend's request, removing item number 9, item 18, item 24, and item 26.
Support?
We sure we don't want to pull the rest of them?
Did Beth want to pull number 3, or was that just?
No, actually, I just offered that as an
No.
amendment to the consent
We'll add
calendar
it to as
to
Oh,
number
okay.
9.
change it from support to just county road millage to
Just correspondence, okay.
I
Okay,
think that was in Larry's motion, right?
Sorry.
everybody happy? A roll call vote.
Commissioner Stepka?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Thomas?
Yeah. Next is the administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is the letter that I received on December 22nd for you from the city manager. That letter indicates, you will recall that the city had made a request for you to consider an ad hoc committee to discuss police services. After that, you passed a motion asking me to go back and determine the terms and negotiate, or see what issues were and try to negotiate something, as we have in the past. And then on December 22nd, a new letter was written with the city again asking you to consider appointing an ad hoc committee to talk about the issues, with an ad hoc committee that they have appointed, which includes Commissioners Gilman, Boudreaux, and Suffredini. And so I wanted to bring that back to your attention. I met with the city manager on several occasions, and basically the city manager says he's not ready to give me any specifics about what they're looking for, because they really would like you to reconsider setting up an ad hoc committee to have discussions elected official to elected official. If I may, I'll tell you that I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think at this point that's probably the appropriate way to go, to at least help them define the issues. And then I would suggest, as I had in the past, that if you decide to do so, get the issues defined without any commitment, come back, talk it over with the rest of the county board, and then get some direction. And maybe that direction is for me to go back, or maybe that direction is for me to go back with the committee, or whatever you choose. But it seems that the city pretty strongly would like to meet with a small group of county elected officials.
Just to follow up on the actions that we took in response to the first letter, you said you haven't had much direction when you're talking with the city manager. Now, is that with respect to the central records contract or just the overall issue?
It's really the overall issue, Commissioner. We've had a couple of conversations, 3 conversations. The first 2, there was a delay in them scheduling their meeting. They then appointed the ad hoc committee and scheduled a meeting, and the result of that was we really would like the county board to consider appointing an elected group to sit down and meet. The city manager is very comfortable with he and I talking about specific terms the way we normally do, but he wanted to reiterate that the city commission felt it important for the elected officials to sit down together and have a discussion before that happens.
So it was more the overall issue. Have you discussed at all the central records?
We've had a lot of
Contract.
discussions of his opinion and my opinion, but we've not gotten into the city commission or the county board's opinion. So he's real reluctant to talk about that, because he received direction from his board that they really prefer to sit down with elected officials first.
Okay, so they're kind of waiting on that.
I believe they
until
are,
this-
and I told him I would bring it back to you tonight for your consideration.
The other action we took in response to the first letter was to define a policy related to the community police officers. Where are we at with that?
I talked with Nate Elger yesterday, and the sheriff has agreed to do that, and so Nate and I will be sitting down in the next few days to start working on that, although we've already put some general parameters together. So I would expect to have that for, I don't know if I can have it by next Wednesday, but certainly by Ways and Means in February.
Sonny?
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that we appoint or take volunteers of 2 or 3 commissioners to sit on this ad hoc committee, but in view of the letter that we have in our packet from Prosecutor Mr. Snyder, I would also recommend that Mr. Snyder and either the sheriff or the undersheriff also be on that committee.
Actually, I wanted to recommend the same thing, to have Mr. Schneider on there, because you are the chief, what's chief law enforcement officer, correct?
I've heard it called Law Dog, you know, I've heard a lot of names called, you know. Some of them I won't put on tape, but.
He is the chief law enforcement officer.
I did just hear the nickname. I'll stick with the chief law enforcement officer.
His letter certainly did shoot a hole in a lot of the things that we were thinking about doing with it.
And that letter has been provided to the city, and the city attorney is reviewing that letter now as well. So when you get together for discussion, I think they'll be ready to discuss that as well.
Well, if we're going to have a committee, I would like to see commissioners from outside the city be on it. In this instance, because you're going to have city commission members on it, I think we should have representatives of the townships.
Mr. Chairman, I'll volunteer to sit on that committee.
We have a motion.
Do the motion first.
Got to do the motion first.
Could you restate the motion, please?
Commissioner Wheelock, I didn't have a second on a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. To take volunteers of 2 or 3 commissioners and Mr. Schneider and the sheriff or undersheriff to sit on the committee.
Everybody understand the motion? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carries. Now, let's see a bunch of volunteer hands go up.
I'll do it. Already. Perfect. Ross the city.
How about, we want 3?
He's got card.
3 or 4? I think I saw 4 hands.
Okay.
1, 2,
Well, you got Ross representing the city.
yeah. I said I preferred that. I didn't say
I mean,
that.
we're not looking to be a majority here, but, you know, I
Well-
am well familiar with the issue.
It isn't.
He also represents Garfield Township.
Yeah, I also
Well,
represent Garfield Township
yeah.
as well as the city, so.
And that's fine. You know, I was just thinking that the committee could end up with mostly Traverse City on it if we weren't careful.
Yeah.
But understand, this committee combined doesn't have any authority.
No, they don't
It's
have.
advisory only.
So even if they have 4 from the city on there, it's not like a vote's going to be taken
Right.
with
Well,
this.
They make a nice urban coffee clutch. So we'll have the 4 who volunteered, Mr. Stepka, Mr. Richardson, who else I see?
Wheelock.
Sonny, and,
Friend.
Beth?
George.
okay, I hereby appoint him. Could I have a motion to approve the appointment?
So moved. Support.
Moved, supported, several supports. And that includes
The sheriff. And
whichever
the prosecutor.
one that he wants on.
And the prosecutor.
Or his designee. And I assume
Or
that.
his designee?
It's always important to add that language.
For a meeting, schedule a time
Add
and
that.
deadlines.
I really expect to see you there.
I'll be.
Mr. Snyder.
No pressure on you.
He doesn't have anything else to do.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, carried.
All right, thank you. We pulled the second item, which was the actuarial study, and so now I'll turn it over to Dean for the claims and accounts.
I provided a copy of the claims for the month of January. Just to point out, there's 4 check runs that include the term accrual. That basically means checks that we process in January that are accrued back as payables against the 2009 budget, so I wanted to explain that. We have backed out the Stepka and Apria claims. They're separately reported at the bottom. So the total claims for the month, including the December benefits posting, are $8,142,814.12.
We have a motion to,
I would move we approve claims in the amount of, as stated.
Support.
move to support by Wheelock. By roll call vote?
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Maxbauer?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Lees?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Stepka?
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas?
Yes. The Stepka and Apria claims, 1869.76.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve Stepka Priya claim in the amount of $1,869.76.
Support.
A roll call vote?
Commissioner Bachbauer?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Lees?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Stepka?
Abstain.
Richardson?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's the sign. Okay, reports of standing committees.
The first one.
Which one was the first one?
Item 9.
Item 1.
Couple out of number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was pulled because I want to see if the county board wants to give me some direction. The Commissioner on Aging is requesting an answer to the question, and their question basically is, if they are right in assuming, which I believe they are, that the county board will make a final decision in regards to the merging of the Traverse City Senior Center with the Commission on Aging, they are asking for the ability to weigh in on the decision and make a recommendation before the county board takes a final vote. And this letter came to us, and then Georgia came afterward and said the Commission on Aging is asking for a formal response from the board if the board would consider giving them the opportunity to make their feelings known.
Russ?
First of all, I don't think that we would, I certainly wouldn't dream of moving forward without making sure the Commission on Aging was on board with this. If they want a formal vote, I'd be happy to make that motion to, ask for their approval.
Well, at least their input.
Recommendation.
Recommendation, excuse me. Recommendation. Thank you.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Carried.
Number 9.
Number 9.
You.
Yeah,
Oh, pardon me, number 9.
now this is sort of silly because I wasn't even at this meeting, but, hold on, let me find it. It has to do with the Civic Center South appropriation.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't
Okay,
understand
and it
that.
says, moved by Wheelock, seconded by Max Power, to notify Civic Center South that Grand Traverse County cannot make the appropriation, and then the roll call vote is 1 yea and 7 nays.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's probably an accurate, I'm guessing it's not an accurate representation of what happened.
That's correct.
No, it is correct.
Then he
It is
redid
correct.
That is correct. And in the discussion that we had earlier, and I had with Dennis, is in our mailbox is a draft letter that was dated January 25th that was sent to them. I think the discussion was we weren't sending them any formal response until we had an opportunity to review what our year-end fund balances were after Dean compiles the final numbers. So we
You were
elect.
basically holding it in abeyance then.
Right,
Yes.
but rather than notify them, no, we're not going to give you the money, we chose not to make any
Well,
response to them at
It
all at
was
that
that January
time.
25th letter that threw me, because there was the letter basically stating
It threw me too,
the
so
opposite
don't
of what
feel
the
like a
motion
Lone
was.
Ranger.
Yep, I think the letter that was sent from my office was incorrect. So we're going to send a response, or we're going to correct that tomorrow, and I'll call Adam myself
Okay,
and
well,
let him know.
I would move then we approve the minutes of December 23rd.
Is there support? Who's supported? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Carried. Next one is number 18.
I asked that to be pulled, Commissioner. Georgia Durga is here with Ralph Suffredini, and it's my understanding that when the ballot language was put together and reviewed by Lori Spencer, it was done before the tax settlement, and so the numbers that were generated in that was last year's, and now we have new numbers that have to be added to the actual ballot language, which will then correct the ballot request. So I wanted to give Georgia an opportunity to do that. She's passing that out now. The new number of what will be estimated to be raised will be $2,239,216. Did you want to add anything to that, Georgia?
No, my name's Georgia Durga. I'm Director of Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging. And actually, it was Brian McGillivray that called me because this was inconsistent with the Road Commission's millage proposal. So he called me yesterday, and I called Lori Spencer, and she updated the information. And so the only change in this ballot language is just that number to, and it's a more accurate reflection. What we had on it before was just an estimate, and that was the best she could give me at the time.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the revised language by the Commission on Aging for their proposed ballot language for the August 3rd, 2010 primary election.
Support.
Been moved and supported, discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
And I just also wanted to let you know, I circulated just some one-page background information on our millage election and revenue that would generate, and some election information, population information, just some brief FYI for you to have. I thought maybe these would be questions you might have, so I tried to answer them in advance. The other thing is a reminder that the Commission on Aging had asked that the millage proposal that we're asking be that all the renewal proposals be on the August primary ballot, and that all the new millage proposals be on the November ballot. And we submitted that memo to the county board and to Dennis, I think it was in December. So we would like to ask you to consider that also.
Ralph doesn't have anything to say?
Not a word.
I asked him.
This is the second time I've been up here. Everybody's just waiting. He's afraid of him. Or he's afraid of her. One or the other.
No one has any questions, then
No.
we're through.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Then the next one is number 24, the county road millage.
Yep, and this one, I just thought it was important to pull it from the standpoint that at the time that you approved it from committee, we did not have the ballot language, and I just wanted to point out, now you have ballot language, Mary's provided, it's been reviewed by the attorneys, correct, Mary? And Mary's here, along with two board members. If there's any questions, I think they're here to answer those.
Mary Gillis, Road Commission Manager. I did have a typo in the handout I gave you, and this would be the third page down, which is basically the priorities or the policy the road improvement group put together to handle the millage if it did pass. And it should be 75% spent on local roads and 25 on primary, and I mixed it up. I was doing some last minute presentations this afternoon, so.
Oh, that one, okay.
The first road you're going to fix is East Duck Lake Road.
Of course.
I thought we already fixed that.
A lot better than it was a year and a half ago.
Mary, that's a Band-Aid. That's what you put on.
Well,
It's
unfortunately, we did a number of Band-Aids, but they're a lot better than they were before that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to...
I just had a question.
You have a question?
Well, yeah, and he said, go ahead, and it's kind of got lost, so if that's okay.
Go ahead.
One of the things I wanted to make sure is the 7 letters that we had received and filed, both were, 4 of them were for the county road millage and supportive of it. 1 was not supportive of actually any millage, and 2 others were, favored the idea of a millage but had some concerns. So I want to make sure that we did notice those, as well as we had a resident ask that they couldn't attend the meeting. Several of those couldn't attend the meeting, so asked that it be read aloud, and asked that I read it aloud, which I wasn't aware of. But I don't think that Renee Coughlin would mind if I kind of turned that over to the clerk to maybe do the honors of that.
Dear Grand Traverse County Commissioners, already being committed to assisting with our church's high school youth group this Wednesday evening, I wanted to forward my thoughts regarding the request to have the county road improvement millage placed on the August 2010 ballot. And ask that best friend, the county commissioner who represents East Bay Township, read this letter aloud during your board meeting Wednesday, January 27th, prior to taking a vote on a request to place the millage on the ballot. As one of the founding members of Fix Our Roads, the initiative to fund local road improvements in Acme and East Bay Townships through a millage request this past November, I'm extremely aware of the need to improve our roads infrastructure throughout the county. Fix Our Roads has been involved with the County Road Improvement Committee since last summer and will continue to be proactively involved. As I have indicated on a personal nature to many of the individuals on the County Road Improvement Committee, I do not agree with the most recent talks of allocation of millage funds. More specifically, the inequitable match between what Traverse City and the villages of Fife Lake and Kingsley would receive in comparison to that which would go back to the townships. The city and the villages would receive $1 of road work for $1 of funding raised in those particular areas. The townships, however, do not have any equitable guarantee that the fundings raised in the townships will go back to road work within the townships. On November 17th, an article by Brian McGilvery was published in the Record Eagle pertaining to deputies patrolling the city. In that article, it states that the commissioners, Christine Maxbauer and Ross Richardson, who both live in the city, said it's not fair to charge the city for something that is free to the townships. And the county administrator, Dennis Aloya, said the city should get the same deal as the townships. I believe the townships should get the same deal as the city and the villages when it comes to road improvements. As the ballot language for the county road millage does not need to be filed for several months, I will continue to advocate for an equitable allocation of funds for our townships at future road improvement meetings. Having voiced my concerns regarding the allocation of millage funds, I am fully supportive of placing the county road improvement millage on the August 2010 ballot. As I've stated many times this past year as a member of Fix Our Roads, people should have the right to vote on an important community issue such as this. Your constituents should have the right to decide whether they would like to use their tax dollars to improve their community by improving the roads which they and their families drive, bike, and walk upon. I will continue to press for more equitable guarantee of funding for our townships, but in the interim, I urge you, the Commissioners of Grand Traverse County, to approve the request to have the county road improvement millage placed on the August 2010 ballot. Thank you, Renee L. Kaufman, 3452 Autumn Leaf Drive, Traverse City, Michigan, 49686.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the other thing I just wanted to make clear, you have a real difficulty with the funding of local roads, as far as you can only spend up to 50% with the MTF funds, and getting that additional amount is difficult. Township boards don't have those resources available to them. In some roads, it's difficult because you can't assess. And one of the things that you're doing with this millage is quite a bit of it is going to local roads.
Correct, and that was my typo on the sheet. We had planned on using 75% of the funds generated for county road use on local roads, and that wouldn't require a match from the townships or the residents. We'd pay for 100% of the projects out of that because it's already locally raised revenue, and we wouldn't have a issue with the law regarding matches on local roads.
And so that's where it makes the biggest difference from what I can tell on your road system ratings if the millage is passed, because on your poor condition roads under local, you go from 80% down to 61, right?
Right. And one of the things that's really hard to gauge, what we did to run these numbers is we used our optimization program that told you what the best fixes are based on asset management. We used 25% of the funding on primaries and 75% on local, and that generated these numbers. The primary side could increase to some extent depending on the federal funding available, because that 25% could be used as local match to federal funds. And right now it's hard to gauge where we're going to be at with federal funds because we're on a month-to-month extension with the federal transportation legislation. But this is probably the worst-case scenario if that gets, if the millage does go through. So it's a significant improvement to the local road system, definitely.
And I can also say, Jim Maitland, Chairman of the Road Commission, in our discussion and the commission, and Mr. Taylor here is Vice Chairman, also, it is our desire to allocate the funds over the life of the millage as equitably as possible to the separate townships. But it's not required by law like it is to give the city. And if we're asking for a 4-year millage, it certainly won't be done equitably each year, but at the end of the 4 years, we would hope that it would come out in relationship to the amount of roads they have, et cetera. So it's going to be our effort and goal to do that, and it's not going to come out exactly to the dollar.
Very good, thank you.
I'll get the ball rolling here. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the ballot language for the county road millage as presented for the August primary election.
Support.
For the August
Election.
primary. Discussion?
I have a question. The 75% of the funds that you would raise for local roads, are you going to require townships match any of that 75%?
No.
Okay. The next question I have is, why 4 years? Why not 2?
This was discussed several times in the road improvement group, and the feeling was with a 2-year, we wouldn't have enough time to actually really make a significant difference. So when we go back to renew or go back to the voters, because of construction seasons, that we wouldn't have a significant enough program to show at that time.
The other question I have is why August? Why not November?
We looked at it, we know it's a need, it's the first possible election.
And I guess I can say, when I came to work in Grand Traverse County in 2006, at that time, I asked the county board to consider it, and there's still quite a few of you on. And at that point, my direction was to come back for August 2010. And I've made that a goal. The road improvement group has kept meeting. It's a crisis. There's a funding crisis in transportation road funding. It's not going to get any better, and the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost to fix.
The other question I have, and you may not be able to answer this, but has the road commission worked with our representatives in Lansing about perhaps allowing counties or local municipalities, the city, whatever, to use a gas tax rather than a millage? And I say that because that way the users pay for the millage, and users have control on how much they drive on the roads. They don't have control on what their property tax value is, unless, of course, they tear down a garage or something.
We've had numerous discussions over many years. There have been several bills introduced. In fact, today they introduced 3 separate bills in the House for gas tax increase, diesel tax increase. We've seen these bills come and go. Over the past 5 years, there have been bills introduced every year. And there hasn't, up to this point, been political will to increase the gas tax. And you're correct, the user fee is the most equitable way to pay for this type of work. However, there's been no support. Our local representatives in Lansing have been basically...
Unresponsive?
No, they gave me a response, but it wasn't one I liked, so I won't repeat it.
I will be supporting this because I do believe that people should have, the chance to make that decision. I just would like to address a couple comments in the letter that was read, though. The reason the city of Traverse City, the village of Kingsley, get $1 back for every dollar that they raise is because that's state law. And because Traverse City and Kingsley are responsible for taking care of the streets and roads within their boundaries and tax themselves to pay for them. And so for Traverse City residents, if the millage passes, they should be knocking on the door of their city commissioner saying, okay, now you're getting, so much money raised from the millage for the roads, then you should reduce our millage otherwise, because obviously this money is going to be used for the roads, and it should replace some of the other taxes that they're already paying.
Correct, and all those agencies are Act 51 agencies, and you're right, they get MTF funds separately, and that's statutory language in the law that allows the county board to put a millage on the ballot.
Right.
I did want to say, too, in response to Beth's comment on Renee's letter, and we've had this discussion several times in the road improvement group, roads, boundary lines on roads, if you look at township lines, there's not a person in this county that doesn't cross township lines or city limits. The roads are for everybody to use. So the conversations about keeping all the revenue raised in East Bay Township or Acme Township in that township does not look at the system-wide approach which we have decided to take, or the group wants to take with this millage. Because it is a system-wide problem and you have to attack it. And there's townships like Union Township that hardly raise any revenue, and they have major county primary roads running through them that serve different regional areas. Out in Kalkaska, we get a lot of traffic from on Supply Road. So those were some of the issues that we looked at, and I wanted to make you aware of them too. So we're going to try to be equitable if it passes, but at the same time, look at the system on a countywide basis.
We'll start down there and come back.
I guess I have a couple comments. One, Mr. Chairman, you talked about the Band-Aid earlier, and then Commissioner Maxbauer talked about 2 years. If you notice, the monies that are collected in 4 years is $3.4 million. This board, in conjunction with the Road Commission, spent $4 million 2 years ago, and we put a Band-Aid on 40 miles of road, approximately. So this $3.4 million, although, when we talk about it, it sounds like a lot of money. It truly doesn't go very far when we talk about the road system and the critical safety concerns of the roads in Grand Traverse County.
Jim, the board's position on the August versus the November election, how strong does the board feel that it has to be August instead of November?
Well, we certainly would listen to your recommendations on that. We did it because it would start the revenue flow sooner. And as Mary said, that's what, she was sort of directed to do that. So we would certainly not have a problem with whatever your decision is, if it comes to that.
And the reason I ask that question is the voter turnout in August generally is pretty small, where I think on this particular millage, I feel pretty strongly that I think it'd have a lot better chance to pass in November than it would in August. And I think it's an imperative that we pass this millage. Like Mary stated, everybody uses the roads. Commissioner Wheelock states that it's going to raise 3.4, based on the material you gave him. We spent $4 million a couple years ago, and I think it's something we absolutely need to do. I think it'd buy you a little more time to sell the idea to the public, and I really want to see this millage go through for the sake of our roads and for you guys' sake. You do an excellent job with the few bucks that you've had lately, so.
Well, and the bucks are getting fewer and the expenses are getting more, so
right.
We're getting further and further behind. But the commission, county commission, can certainly look at that and make.
Well, I'm not going to support Larry's motion because I'm in favor of November instead of August, so I'm going to vote no on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Who else? Larry?
I have no burning desire on either August or November, so I I'd be willing to change my motion to November if I hear from a couple other county commissioners, that's what they'd like to see. So,
First of all, regarding Renee's letter, I don't think she would mind if I told you, I had a conversation with her the other day, and I guess I look at it a little bit more like that the road, if it's going to be a county millage as opposed to, say, a township millage, I think you have to look at it at a county perspective, because we do travel amongst the townships. But I do see her point, and I think we do need to make sure that there's some improvements all over. So I really appreciate the comment that your chairman made. And also, I think Renee would not mind me saying that I don't think she was necessarily looking for a dollar for dollar payback, but more so that there would be, substantial work needed or equitableness. So I think she would appreciate the chairman's comments. I wanted to thank Mary for addressing a lot of the questions that have come your way, particularly recently. There have been a lot of questions on specifics and operations and all of those things, and she's always been, from what I can tell in response on emails, addressing the questions quickly and so forth. So I appreciate that. And as far as August or November, I think voters are going to let you know. I remember the Commission on Aging's memo. They came to us and said they would like to be on separate memos. I thought that was reasonable to have the renewals in August and the new millages in November. I didn't have any problem with that thought. But as well, his motion is on August, and I won't have a problem voting on that because I think the voters will let you know. Even between millages on the same ballot, they'll let you know how they feel about it.
You say you don't mind which month it happens in?
No, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend my motion to reflect the November election versus the August election.
Support.
Okay. You amended your support? Did I hear that?
Didn't you support it?
I did. You have to support it.
I thought Commissioner Hooper supported it.
It all sounded like this
So
time
Bruce,
of day.
Bruce has to support the amendment if he does, or...
I guess I'm along with Beth. I don't think it matters which month we do it in, and so if that, I'm fine. I'll amend my motion.
Well, personally, I think that we're going to have a big turnout in November, which you may not get that much in August.
Right.
It's beginning to look like it's going to be a pile-up in November. So, is more the merrier, or is less the merrier? You never know.
I think the thing is more representative, the more voters you have, For example, in 2008, the voter turnout in August in Blair Township wasn't even 10%. And so the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. I think you stand a lot better shot. Plus, it gives them more time to work on it.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So
Just, and I could be wrong, and Dean probably knows better than I do, but to me, if it goes on the ballot in 2010, whether it be in August or November, it'll be assessed to the 2011 tax bill. That money won't be collected until the fall of 2011. So it won't be distributed until January of 2012.
I'm not sure.
I think it's collected, because remember how when we pass the tax rates in
Right.
October, and there's an election in November, we have to go back and amend it in December when the millage is approved or denied. So I think it goes on the December tax bill, but I could be wrong. We'll have to verify that. The other question that I had was, or at least my impression is, it doesn't matter whether it's on August or November from a standpoint of when the money comes in, because it's going to come in the same tax year either way. So one doesn't come in a year before the other. So from that standpoint, I think it'll come in at the same time. But whether that's 2011 or 2012, that's what we'll have to check. I think it's 2011.
anything else? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. We appreciate them roads plowed.
We plow them very well in January. It helps when it doesn't snow.
The rain was a little tough a few days, though.
November, and so the voters right to choose.
All right, then.
Mr. Chairman, the next item pulled is item number 26 on page 65 of your packet. Again, I remind commissioners that I am the subcontractor, fabricated the rails for Hallmark Construction. The rails are on site, but the installation was not able to occur before the winter came, and therefore I would like to not participate in this discussion, and I will be abstaining from the vote on that issue.
Yes, I would move that we approve the reduction in retainage for the Twin Lakes contract with Hallmark Construction from 10% to 5%.
Support.
Moved and supported, discussion. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Lees?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Abstain?
Stepka?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Max Power?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes. That completes that portion. Our next is old business, right? Let's have some old business.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is, there was a Rules Committee appointed by the board. I think Commissioner Richardson is the chairman. Would you like to take this, Commissioner Richardson?
Yeah, I think so. We, of course, presented draft rules at the January 4th organizational meeting. There still being a few questions and things to iron out. It was decided at that meeting by the board that, you know, we'd wait until this meeting to review a final draft and not try to implement changes in committees and committee structure until February. So we met on, I believe, January 8th, is that right? And I believe we hammered out all the questions and adopted the suggestions by this board as far as specifically how to appoint people to the various and sundry special committees that we do so. And so they are presented for your approval.
Move for approval as presented.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Discussion?
Yeah, I would like to thank Bob Cooney. We showed up at that first meeting with, you know, kind of some more overarching ideas, and he said, well, I wanted to have at these a little bit and wanted to, you know, make sure there's a lot of statute reflections in these.
He worked very hard. I think he worked harder than anybody on
Yeah,
these.
he really did.
And did a great job. Cleaned up a lot of stuff for us.
He's sitting over in his office right now. In case you have any further questions, he's doing other work, but he's here.
Oh, no.
He's not watching on TV?
Probably is watching on the computer.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Good, we got new rules.
Well, goody. Cleaned up.
Now, we have, on the new committees, I'm still having to look up the names of them committees. We've got, what I thought we could do is take the four chairmen from the committees we have now and have the chairman of one be the chairman and the chairman of the other be the vice chairman. And so the way it worked out, Larry and Bruce were the chairman of public safety and LNA, no.
He was.
Yeah.
LNA and
Physical resources.
LNA and physical resources.
Bruce threw the coin, I lost, so he'll be the chairman.
Hello, is that a loss or not?
So seeing as though Bruce lost, he's going to be the chairman. And Larry will be the vice chairman. And
Public
Mr.
safety.
Wheelock, who's a public safety, wanted the job of chairman of the other committee, and Ms. Max Bauer did not, so.
I'm very agreeable to that.
You are the vice chairman.
So I make those appointments with your approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Now, God, we're moving so fast, I can't keep up. The last item on my agenda is appointment of commissioners to Parks and
Right
Rec.
up right away. I don't know.
Is that right?
Yes.
And we want to put 3 commissioners on the subcommittee?
Yes,
3.
3.
Volunteers.
I volunteer.
There's a volunteer. There's a volunteer. One more.
What was the second?
This is to be on a rules committee this is on a committee to look at the rules of operation, Parks and
Yeah.
Recreation.
What was the
That's a-
second volunteer?
Mike
Maxwell or Wheelock and Stepka.
Okay.
Anybody else want to get into?
I was
I
just gonna
hereby
make a
appoint
motion.
those 3 with your approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there anything else? Mr. Chair, asking me.
10 after 8.
Your calendars? You notice that all our meetings now are on Wednesdays, and it's actually a pretty bare-looking calendar compared to what it used to be. Yes, sir.
Dennis, the February 17th meeting is now canceled for the joint township
Yes,
county
that's
meeting?
correct.
And do we have another date? Or no?
Well, there's a tentative date, but it's in March. It's the earliest we could get John Axe here.
Okay.
And I want to say it's the 22nd, Commissioner, but we'll be sending you a notice of
All
it.
right, okay.
Did you say the 17th is the?
Yeah. The 17th is
We cannot get, John Axe could come, but Ross Childs won't be here, and John felt it was important to have someone from Public Works here.
Okay.
Important to mention.
Tomorrow.
I think it, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to mention for those in the public who may be watching, that we passed new rules, but that means that our committee system is now changed, and instead of committees on Tuesday and Wednesday of the first and second week of the month, there will be those committees will be joined together, and they will be on the first and second Wednesdays of the month at 7:30 in the morning. The other change that was made by the board in the rules is that Ways and Means that used to be at 5 o'clock on the third Tuesday will now be at 7:30 in the morning on the third Wednesday. So all the county meetings are on Wednesdays. The first 3 weeks of the month are Wednesday mornings at 7:30, and the last week of the month is 7 o'clock at night for the board meeting here in this room on Wednesday night.
You're all committees of the whole.
Yes, and all 9 commissioners sit on all of
Yeah.
those committees.
And Beth just reminded me, I didn't know anything about it, but there's an LMA meeting tomorrow?
No, OMA. Oh, the Open Meetings Act
Yes.
at
Thank
2
you.
o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Bob
Yep.
Cooney's putting that on at the Civic Center at 2 o'clock.
Yep, and we're going to be doing that every year, and new board members of all our boards and commissions are invited and in fact encouraged. We had a department head meeting today about that. We're going to recommend to you that in the future, those be mandatory for new board members, that everyone is asked to attend. But yes, it's tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and I think there's room if anybody else wants to come. Be good information.
You have to make reservations?
No, but you should tell us you're coming. If you're coming.
Do we want to
Right.
ask the sheriff about the liaison officers? Or should we talk about that in hiding?
That's really up to the commission if you want to. I expected that we would have a discussion at the Public Health and Safety Committee next week. Because I'd like to get, we're still trying to work to get a little more information from the schools, about where this may kind of flush itself out. But I don't know, Sheriff, would you feel more comfortable once we've had a chance to see where the schools are at? Did you want to make any comments to the board?
No, that would be my comment. We don't kind of think we're going down this road, but we're not to the end of it yet. And so I think we probably should wait to see what happens.
Just to clarify, the board, that is not the case in Kingsley.
That is not the case in Kingsley. And secondarily, schools are not, they are committed to the 2009-10 school year, which is not effective until September.
Okay.
I am visiting with the school liaison officer at West Middle School tomorrow, and I have school board members going with me, and if anybody else would like to go as well, I think we're meeting at 10 o'clock at the West Middle School office, and as long as 4 others don't go.
Mr. Chairman, I was contacted by the media earlier in the day for response to this, and my comment to them was, first and foremost, that arrangement is between the sheriff and the schools, and at such time as they've got worked out what their arrangement is, I would assume the sheriff will come to this board and ask for additional funding or identify additional funding within his budget. At this time, I didn't believe that I had any comment, and I probably will remain with that until such time as the sheriff comes and outlines a program of what he proposes to do in 2010-2011 school year.
I do have to say that my experience with the school liaison officers, and I've had some, has just been outstanding. I just cannot imagine those officers not being there.
Oh, it's an invaluable program.
They truly make a
We have to figure out
difference
a way
in
to
those
make it
kids'
stay there.
lives. They truly do.
It's a very invaluable program. We absolutely have to find a way to make it happen.
I see they were already on TV, but they called me too this morning. That's what I told them. I'd like to see them not go away, but. Okay, public comment. Yes, sir.
Lonnie Schaub, Garfield Township President. First of all, I want to applaud the board for approving the millage, the road millage, to be in the November election. Second of all, I was concerned about a comment that was made by Dennis about the EDC money that's available, or actually the stimulus money that's available that the EDC was talking about. When I also manage Reith Rally Construction, and we're a union shop. And when we talk about the Davis-Bacon wages and that it's going to cost more, I just want to point out that certainly I would agree with that on a building project where labor, it's very labor intensive. When it comes to roads, with a ton of asphalt is only about, the labor is only about 5% of the cost of the asphalt. I mean, on non-Davis-Bacon jobs, I compete every day against those non-prevailing wage companies, and so I would just hate to see us just skip right over that money if it's available, because I do think you won't see an increase in cost, especially 11%.
Well, we will look at that with Mary Gillis and the Road Commission to talk about that. And I'm not familiar with how union wages here in this county match up against prevailing wage.
They're the same.
Prevailing wage. They are the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, prevailing Davis-Bacon wages are based every year upon the union wage agreements. They follow those.
Thank you.
You bet. It's just important. I mean, our roads are a mess, and we do everything we can. And I'm glad to see everybody's in favor of it. And we also work very hard as an industry with government to work on, we'll continue working on the gas taxes and to do everything we can also.
We can count on you to rally Garfield Township in this vote?
Absolutely.
Good.
And I really do think that's a big part of it, is many of the voters out there just don't understand how our roads are funded. They think it's out of the general fund or property taxes and everything. I mean, we just need to do a better job of educating the public, and I think we can get this thing done.
We hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Anyone else? Do we have reason to go into closed session?
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Wow. Sounds good to me.
Hey, Mary.
I didn't jump
Cell phone.